Something has been living in the deep ocean for at least 100 years. We know it is real. We know it weighs as much as a grizzly bear. And until March of last year, no human had ever seen one alive. The colossal squid, heaviest creature without a spine on this entire planet, eyes wider than a dinner plate, hooks on its arms that spin 360 degrees, and it lives in darkness so deep that sunlight never reaches it. We're going to go there together. We will discover the rotating hooks, the whale battles, the glassy baby, and the unanswered questions that keep scientists up at night. If you enjoy this journey, like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Now, prepare yourself. We go down. For 100 years, scientists built an entire picture of the largest invertebrate on Earth using nothing but leftovers. No video, no live sightings, no photographs taken in the wild. Just the hard, curved beaks of an enormous squid discovered over and over again inside the stomachs of sperm whales. Dozens of beaks, hundreds of them, eventually. And each one was a clue pointing to something massive living in the deep ocean that nobody had ever truly seen. The colossal squid was formally named in 1925. A scientist studying whale stomach contents pulled out 2 tentacles from a sperm whale and realized they belonged to something unlike any squid previously described. The hooks on those tentacles were different. The size was different. The whole thing suggested an animal operating on a scale that the ocean had been hiding from us. And yet, after that discovery, almost nothing new came for decades. Other squid species got studied. The giant squid, longer but much thinner, became the famous one. People wrote books about it, made documentaries, pointed cameras at the ocean and hoped. Meanwhile, the colossal squid sat in total darkness, far south near Antarctica, doing exactly what it had always done, completely unbothered by human curiosity. Here is what makes this strange. Scientists were confident the animal existed. The beak evidence was overwhelming. Sperm whales hunting in the Southern Ocean kept arriving at the surface with those unmistakable beaks packed inside their stomachs. By the time researchers counted carefully, they had found 55 colossal squid beaks in total from whale guts alone. 55 meals, 55 animals that had been swallowed, and still zero footage. Zero live encounters confirmed by science. Think about what that means for a second. An animal heavier than a grizzly bear, living across an ocean that stretches all the way around Antarctica, and for 100 years the only proof of its existence came from the digestive system of its predator. The beak, it turns out, is nearly indestructible. While the soft body of a squid breaks down inside a whale quickly, the beak survives. It sits in the stomach like a little black fossil, hard and curved, shaped like a parrot's mouth scaled up to something enormous. Scientists learned to read those beaks the way a detective reads fingerprints. The size of the beak told them the size of the animal, and the sizes they were calculating were alarming. By the early 2000s, researchers estimated some of the squid behind those beaks had to be bigger than anything previously caught. Much bigger. Heavier than any invertebrate recorded in history. The animal was out there. It was enormous. It was alive. And it had managed to avoid every camera, every net, every attempt to find it for a full century. That should have been the end of the mystery, except that the more scientists dug into the beak evidence, the more questions kept piling up. Because a beak only tells you so much. It tells you the animal existed. It tells you roughly how big it was. It tells you a whale ate it. What it cannot tell you is what the animal actually looked like when it was alive. And what scientists eventually discovered, when they finally got that answer, was far stranger than any of them expected. The number everyone remembers about the colossal squid is its length. People hear 46 feet and picture something long and serpentine, like an enormous ribbon sliding through the dark water. That picture is wrong. Length is actually the least interesting thing about this animal. The colossal squid's real superpower is its weight. The heaviest confirmed specimen, caught in 2007 off the coast of New Zealand, weighed nearly 1,100 pounds. That is heavier than a large grizzly bear. It is heavier than a grand piano. It is heavier than most cars from the 1960s. And that was a single squid, hauled up from the deep ocean by a fishing vessel that was hunting a completely different animal entirely. Picture the difference between a giant squid and a colossal squid. The giant squid is longer, technically. It can stretch out to around 43 feet when you include its 2 long feeding tentacles. But the giant squid is built like a ribbon, thin, light, mostly tentacle. You could think of it like a really long garden hose. The colossal squid is built like a truck. Its mantle, the main body section, sits at around 8 feet long in adults. That mantle is packed with dense muscle. The arms are shorter and thicker than those of the giant squid. The whole body carries a mass that makes it the single heaviest invertebrate ever confirmed to exist, anywhere, in any ocean, in all of recorded scientific history. And here is where it gets more unsettling. That 1,100-pound specimen from 2007 was likely a female. Female colossal squid appear to grow larger than males, which means the animal scientists caught may not have been the biggest one out there. The biggest ones probably never got caught. They stayed down deep and kept growing in the cold and dark of the Southern Ocean, where nobody could find them. The cold matters here. The Southern Ocean wraps around Antarctica and stays near freezing year-round. In water that cold, an animal's body processes slow way down. Its metabolism drops. It does not need to eat constantly the way a warm-blooded animal does. This means a colossal squid can spend enormous amounts of energy growing, slowly, over a long time, becoming bigger and heavier with each passing year. Scientists believe the colossal squid may be one of the slowest moving large predators in the ocean. It does not chase prey across long distances. It waits. It drifts in the dark. It uses as little energy as possible and saves every bit of it for a single explosive strike when something comes close enough. A football field-length stretch of the Southern Ocean could contain dozens of these animals, hanging silently in the dark, completely invisible, waiting for something to come within range of their arms. Scientists have no way to count them. The population size of the colossal squid remains genuinely unknown. The weight, the muscle, the build, all of it points to the same conclusion. This animal was designed for one thing, grabbing something large and not letting go. What it uses to do that grabbing is stranger than anyone expected, and it is the detail that sets the colossal squid apart from every other creature on the planet. Imagine an eye the size of a dinner plate, roughly 11 inches across, wider than a soccer ball, so large that if you held it in your hands, it would not fit in most kitchen bowls. That is the confirmed size of a colossal squid's eye, measured from the specimen brought up in 2007. Some estimates put the largest adult eyes even bigger, possibly as wide as 16 inches across. If those estimates hold, the colossal squid possesses the largest eye of any animal that has ever lived on Earth, including the dinosaurs, including animals that have gone extinct. No animal in the history of life on this planet has been documented with a larger eye. And the reason why is one of the most elegant pieces of biology in the ocean. The colossal squid lives between 1,000 and 6,000 feet below the surface. At those depths, sunlight is gone entirely. The water is not dim. It is completely, perfectly black. A human being placed at 600 feet below the surface in the open ocean would be completely blind, standing in darkness more total than any room with the lights off. But the ocean at that depth is not actually empty of light. The light comes from the animals themselves. Bacteria, jellyfish, lanternfish, and dozens of other creatures glow with their own bioluminescence, those cold living sparks that pulse and fade in the dark. A sperm whale diving toward the colossal squid's territory creates pressure waves in the water as it moves, and some scientists believe that bioluminescent creatures disturbed by those pressure waves create faint flashes of light. Those flashes, tiny and brief, give away the whale's position. The colossal squid's enormous eye is built to catch that signal. A larger eye collects more of that faint light, the same way a bigger satellite dish picks up a weaker signal from deeper in space. The pupil alone on a colossal squid's eye measures around 3.5 inches across. That pupil can open wide enough to draw in every available photon of light in the surrounding water. The squid can likely detect the shadow of a sperm whale approaching from far enough away to react. But scientists suspect the eye does more than detect predators. The colossal squid is believed to be a visual predator, meaning it hunts primarily by sight in a place where sight should be impossible. It likely watches for the bioluminescent glow of deep-sea fish moving through the dark water, uses those faint signals to calculate distance and direction, and then strikes. There is also a photophore, a small light-producing organ located around the squid's eye. Its function is still a genuine mystery. Some researchers believe it helps the squid see at extreme close range. Others suspect it plays a role in luring prey directly toward the squid's face. That second possibility is deeply unsettling. Picture an animal sitting perfectly still in total darkness, letting its eyes glow just barely, just enough to attract something curious swimming through the black. Patient, waiting. That organ around the eye might be the most sophisticated hunting tool in the deep ocean, but understanding it fully requires studying a live adult, which brings its own enormous problem. Because getting close to a live adult colossal squid is something no one has managed yet. Most squid catch their prey with suckers, round, rim-lined cups that grip a surface and hold on by vacuum pressure. Some species have suckers edged with tiny teeth, effective, reliable, used by hundreds of squid species across every ocean on the planet. The colossal squid does something completely different. Its tentacles end in what scientists call clubs, flat paddle-shaped structures lined with a very specific weapon. Not suckers, hooks. Sharp, curved, rigid hooks embedded in 2 neat rows along the centre of each club. And these hooks do not simply point in one direction and stay there. They rotate. Each hook sits on a short stalk set into a small depression in the tentacle surface, and that mounting allows the hook to spin a full 360 degrees around its axis. 22 to 25 of these rotating hooks sit on each tentacle club. When the squid strikes prey and those clubs make contact, the hooks dig in and then twist, locking into flesh at multiple angles simultaneously. A fish or squid that gets grabbed by those clubs is not dealing with suction that might break loose. It is dealing with hooks actively rotating inside its body, anchoring deeper with every struggle. No other squid in the colossal squid's entire biological family has hooks. Scientists have studied roughly 20 species in that family. Every single one uses suckers. The colossal squid evolved its hooks independently, going in a direction that no close relative followed. That kind of isolated evolution usually signals something specific. Whatever the colossal squid hunts is large, strong, and worth the extra equipment. The arms themselves, which are different from the 2 longer tentacles, carry their own set of hooks. These arm hooks do not rotate, but they are bigger, thicker, more like claws. An adult colossal squid presenting all 8 arms open, ready to strike, displays a circle of hooks wider than a doorframe. Scientists examining the scars on sperm whales have made an interesting discovery. The circular marks once assumed to come from giant squid suckers show a different pattern in whales that hunt in the Southern Ocean. Those marks look more consistent with hooks than suckers. The colossal squid, not the giant squid, may be the one leaving the deepest scars on the largest predator in the ocean. What makes the hooks even stranger is that researchers still do not know whether the squid consciously controls each one. The hooks may spin passively once they catch, driven by the prey's own struggling rather than by any muscle the squid controls. Or the squid may be able to twist each hook individually like tiny fingers gripping a wound. Nobody knows. Every complete adult specimen recovered so far has been dead, brought to the surface by fishermen accidentally, and studying a dead squid's hook control is nearly impossible. There is another piece to this that scientists have only recently begun to take seriously. The colossal squid's arms also carry large serrated suckers alongside those hooks. 2 weapons on the same limb, hook and sucker working together. An animal that evolved rotating hooks giant serrated suckers, massive claws on its arms, and a strike fast enough to catch deep-sea fish is operating on a level of physical design that should not belong to an invertebrate. But the hooks are still not the most alarming part of the squid's anatomy. At the centre of the colossal squid's arm circle, surrounded by all those hooks and suckers, sits the mouth. It does not look like a mouth. It looks like a beak. Black, hard, curved, shaped almost identically to a parrot's beak, but scaled up to a size that belongs in a nightmare. The upper part curves sharply downward over the lower part. The edges are razor sharp. The whole structure is made of a material called chitin, the same substance that forms the shells of beetles and crabs, but denser and more precisely shaped. This beak is strong enough to cut through bone. A 6-foot Patagonian toothfish, which is one of the hardest-bodied deep-sea fish in the Southern Ocean, gets torn apart by this beak, not slowly. The squid uses the beak to bite chunks free in rapid succession, processing a large fish in minutes. The beak works with a rough tongue-like structure behind it called a radula, covered in tiny teeth, which helps push food backward toward the squid's throat. Here is something that changes how you picture this animal. The squid's brain surrounds its throat. The esophagus runs directly through the centre of the brain, meaning food passes through the brain on its way to the stomach. This creates a hard physical limit on what the squid can swallow in one piece. Anything too large going down that throat risks damaging the brain from the inside. So the beak exists in part to make sure nothing enters the squid's body in a piece too big for its own brain to safely handle. That is an extraordinary design problem solved in an extraordinary way. The beak's survival record is also extraordinary. Whale stomach acid breaks down flesh, bone, and soft tissue quickly. The chitin beak resists all of it. A colossal squid can be fully digested inside a sperm whale within hours, leaving nothing behind except that hard black beak sitting at the bottom of the whale's stomach like a dropped coin. Those beaks last inside whales long enough that multiple meals get stacked up. So researchers opening a whale's stomach sometimes find beaks from dozens of different squid meals going back weeks or months. 55 colossal squid beaks have been collected from sperm whales across the Southern Ocean. Each one represents a separate animal that was caught, killed, and eaten. Each one was the last surviving piece of a creature that may have weighed close to 1,000 pounds. The beak is also the reason scientists got accurate size estimates before they ever saw a live animal. The relationship between beak size and total body size follows a predictable mathematical pattern. A larger beak means a larger animal. By measuring beaks carefully and running those calculations, researchers were able to project that some colossal squid in the wild had to be significantly larger than anything ever brought to the surface. So for a long time, the beak was not only the proof that the squid existed, it was also the only tool available for understanding how big the animal could actually get. And those calculations produced numbers that made researchers genuinely uncomfortable. Numbers that suggested animals out in the Southern Ocean growing larger than any human would ever see pulled to the surface. Something much stranger about how this animal stays alive down there is coming next. Most large ocean predators have to keep moving to stay alive. Sharks must swim constantly, or they sink and suffocate. Tuna never stop. Even many deep-sea fish burn energy maintaining their position in the water column all day long. The colossal squid does something fundamentally different. It floats. Inside the colossal squid's massive body, specifically inside its mantle, the tissues are saturated with a chemical called ammonium chloride. This compound is less dense than seawater, which means it makes the squid's body naturally buoyant. The squid does not need to actively swim to hold its position in the water. It drifts. It hangs in the dark, perfectly still, using almost no energy at all, waiting. This is a bigger deal than it might sound. Staying still at depth burns almost nothing. The squid can spend enormous stretches of time hovering motionless in the dark water, its massive eyes scanning for any trace of light or movement, while its metabolism ticks along at the absolute minimum. Scientists believe this strategy, staying perfectly still, and striking only when prey comes close, is the colossal squid's primary hunting method. But the ammonium chloride creates a side effect that is less impressive. It makes the squid's flesh taste terrible, sharply bitter, almost like strong ammonia. A colossal squid that washes up on a beach is usually left alone by scavenging birds because the smell and taste of the flesh drives them away. Fishermen who have accidentally hauled colossal squid to the surface report the same thing. The meat is so unpleasant that the squid holds almost no commercial fishing value. In a strange way, that bitter chemistry is a kind of passive defense. Nothing wants to eat a colossal squid just for the taste of it. The buoyancy also explains something about the squid's body shape that confused early researchers. The mantle, that main body barrel, looks soft and almost gelatinous compared to what you might expect from a large predator. The tissues are not packed tight with dense muscle, the way a tuna's body is. They are partly supported by the ammonium-rich fluid, which acts as a kind of structural fill. The squid does not need hard muscle everywhere, because the fluid carries some of the body's weight. This means the colossal squid's actual usable muscle is concentrated. The arms and tentacles have it. The strike is powerful, but the rest of the body floats along passively, saving every possible calorie for that explosive moment of contact. Scientists studying how cephalopods manage energy budgets in cold, deep water consider the colossal squid one of the most efficient large predators in the ocean. Efficient in the sense that it spends the least possible energy per unit of time while alive. It is the biological equivalent of a vehicle that barely runs its engine, rolling downhill on stored fuel until the exact moment it needs to accelerate. That efficiency also means the squid can survive long stretches between successful hunts. Unlike warm-blooded predators that must eat constantly to maintain body temperature, the colossal squid in near-freezing water can stretch a single large meal across days, possibly weeks, of patient waiting. The depth where it does all this waiting is as extreme as the animal itself, and what lives down in that environment, what the squid has to share that darkness with, is a story that requires going there directly. Picture a ring of water surrounding the entire continent of Antarctica. No land breaks it anywhere. Wind sweeps across it uninterrupted, circling the globe continuously, building waves that can reach 60 feet tall. The water temperature stays near freezing year-round. Storms roll through it for months at a time. Human ships crossing it have to plan carefully, move quickly, and hope the weather holds. This is the Southern Ocean, and the colossal squid calls it home. The squid's confirmed range extends across the entire Southern Ocean, circling Antarctica in a band that stretches north toward the southern tips of South America, South Africa, and New Zealand. That range spans millions of square miles of some of the least studied water on the planet. Researchers do not visit regularly because getting there is genuinely dangerous. The weather alone has sunk ships. The remoteness means a rescue, if something goes wrong, takes days. Below the surface, the conditions get more extreme. The water column drops from the storm-churned surface down into the deep. At around 300 feet, the light fades. At 1,000 feet, it is gone completely. At 2,000 feet, the pressure is roughly 60 times what you feel standing at sea level. A human body placed at that depth without protection would be crushed instantly. The cold at those depths stays just above freezing all year, never warming, never changing. The colossal squid lives between 1,000 feet and 6,500 feet down. Adults stay in the deeper zones. Juveniles live closer to the surface during their early life before sinking as they mature. The squid migrates vertically through this water column over time, growing larger and moving deeper as it ages, until the biggest adults occupy zones of the ocean that even specialized research equipment struggles to reach. The Southern Ocean also happens to be one of the most biologically productive oceans on Earth. Cold water rising from the deep brings nutrients up to the surface. Those nutrients feed massive blooms of tiny organisms. Those organisms feed krill and small fish. Those fish feed larger fish. And at the deepest levels of that food web, at the very tip of the chain, the colossal squid hunts the hunters. The Patagonian toothfish, which the squid preys on heavily, can grow to over 6 feet long and weigh more than 200 pounds. It is a powerful, cold-adapted predator in its own right. The colossal squid catches and eats them. That single fact places the squid near the very top of one of the most extreme food chains in the ocean. The Southern Ocean's remoteness has protected the squid from human interference for its entire known existence. The Antarctic Treaty, which covers the waters surrounding Antarctica, restricts industrial fishing and provides a layer of legal protection to the ecosystem. The squid itself has no commercial value, so nobody targets it. It lives in a place too difficult to reach, too dangerous to stay in, and too deep to monitor with standard equipment. For the colossal squid, that inaccessibility has been the best protection in the world. No commercial fleet targets it, no research station sits nearby. The squid simply lives out its life in a place that costs too much in danger and money for most humans to visit. But even in that remote place, something was about to find it. Every adult colossal squid ever seen by a human was either dead, dying, or in pieces inside a whale. Scientists had built their entire model of this animal from those encounters: dark reddish-brown body, huge opaque eyes, dense thick arms bristling with hooks, a heavy, powerful creature built for the deep. Then, in 2025, a camera saw something completely different. A baby colossal squid, alive, moving freely, and almost entirely invisible. The juvenile squid filmed in March of 2025 was roughly 1 foot long and almost perfectly see-through, transparent, like a living piece of glass drifting through the dark water. Its body had no colour to speak of. Its fins were so thin and delicate they barely showed up on camera. Scientists who watched the footage described it as looking like a glass sculpture. One researcher said it looked like something you would find in a jewellery store, not an ocean. The arms were already there, already equipped with those distinctive hooks that confirmed what species it was. But wrapped in that clear, delicate body, the hooks looked almost decorative rather than threatening. The eyes were already large relative to the body size, already collecting light in a place where light barely exists. Here is the extraordinary thing about that transparency. It is a full biological strategy. At the depths where juvenile colossal squid live, roughly 300 to 1600 feet down, there is still a tiny amount of ambient light filtering down from above. Predators hunting at those depths often look upward, searching for the silhouettes of prey against that faint light from above. A solid-bodied animal creates a shadow. A transparent animal has no shadow to detect. The juvenile squid essentially disappears against the surrounding water, invisible from below, from the sides, and from above. As the squid matures and moves deeper, it slowly loses that transparency. The body gradually darkens, shifting to the reddish-brown colour of adults. At the greatest depths, where no light reaches at all, transparency offers no advantage. At those depths, the squid's size and hooks become its protection. But the juvenile phase could last a significant portion of the squid's life. Nobody knows exactly how long the colossal squid lives. Scientists estimate somewhere between several years and possibly a decade or more. For much of that time, the young squid may drift through the upper deep water as an almost invisible glass ghost, growing quietly toward the size of a grizzly bear. The footage from 2025 revealed something else unexpected. The juvenile's mantle showed faint colour-changing cells, called chromatophores, visible in the high-resolution video. Adults of many squid species use chromatophores to change colour rapidly for camouflage or communication. Finding them in a juvenile colossal squid opens questions nobody had thought to ask before. Can the colossal squid change colour? Does it signal to other squid? Does it use colour to hunt? Those questions did not exist before that 1 minute of footage. One baby squid, accidentally spotted during a live stream, cracked open a mystery that 100 years of science had left completely sealed. Every answer the footage provided came attached to 2 new questions that nobody had thought to ask before. and the story of how that footage was almost missed entirely is stranger than the squid itself. On March 9th, 2025, a research vessel called the Falkor was working near the South Sandwich Islands in the South Atlantic Ocean. The team on board was running an ocean census expedition, a large scientific effort to find and document unknown marine life. They deployed a remote-operated vehicle deep into the water, sending it down to 600 meters, about 2,000 feet, while streaming the video feed live online for anyone to watch. The camera moved through dark water. Occasional creatures drifted past. The scientists watched the feed and logged what they saw. Then a small, glassy, almost invisible squid appeared at the edge of the frame. The team on board did not immediately know what they were looking at. The chief scientist, Dr. Michelle Taylor, later described the animal as beautiful and unusual, and said the team kept the camera on it simply because it looked so strange. Nobody aboard the vessel was a specialist in deep-sea squid identification. They filmed it carefully. The squid hovered in the water, fins barely moving, arms fanned out loosely, completely unaware that it was being watched by a machine built by the species that had been searching for it for a century. Meanwhile, someone watching the live stream at home saw the squid on screen and sent a screenshot to an independent squid expert named Aaron Evans. Evans looked at the image and immediately started trying to reach the vessel. He contacted Dr. Kat Bolstad at Auckland University of Technology, one of the world's leading specialists in glass squids, the family to which the colossal squid belongs. Bolstad had just returned from her own Antarctic expedition that same week. She looked at the high-resolution footage the team sent her and confirmed it within hours. The hooks on the arms, the fin shape, the body structure, juvenile colossal squid, first confirmed live footage in 100 years of known existence. Evans later told reporters he started hyperventilating when he confirmed what he was seeing. Bolstad described it as one of the most exciting observations in the history of the entire field. The Schmidt Ocean Institute, which operates the Falkor, announced the discovery publicly on April 16, 2025, 100 years to the month after the colossal squid was formally named and described as a species. The juvenile in the footage was only about 1 foot long, a tiny fraction of what it would eventually become if it survived to adulthood. It showed no awareness of the camera. It hovered. It drifted slightly. Its transparent body caught the light from the vehicle in a way that made it shimmer faintly. Then it moved out of frame. That was it. A few minutes of footage. A 1-foot baby in 2,000 feet of dark water. The squid was filmed for a total of several minutes before it drifted out of camera range. Scientists on board did not try to follow it. Worried that pursuing it would disturb the animal or contaminate the observation, they let it go. That restraint was its own kind of scientific discipline, and scientists said it changed everything they thought they knew about how to study this animal. Because what the footage revealed about the squid's behaviour while alive is something no dead specimen could ever have shown them. The fact that anyone identified that squid at all is partly luck, and partly the strange new reality of deep-sea science. The researchers aboard the Falkor were not squid experts. The team was looking for new marine life in general, the South Sandwich Islands being one of the least explored stretches of ocean on Earth. When the remote-operated vehicle spotted the small glassy animal at 2,000 feet, the scientists on board logged it as unusual and kept filming, but they could not confirm the species themselves. The footage would have gone into the data archive, possibly flagged for later review, and the identification might have taken weeks or months. What changed everything was the live stream. The Schmidt Ocean Institute streams its research vehicle footage online in real time. Anyone in the world can watch. On March 9th, a viewer sitting somewhere far from the South Atlantic Ocean was watching that feed and saw the squid appear on screen. That viewer recognized something, took a screenshot, and sent it directly to Aaron Evans, the independent squid biologist. Evans saw the image and understood immediately. He reached Kat Bolstad. Bolstad confirmed the species from high-resolution footage sent by the vessel. The entire chain, from the squid appearing on camera to expert confirmation, happened within hours. The vessel still had the animal's location logged. Scientists could analyse the footage in near real time rather than months later. This process, where experts around the world watch live deep-sea footage and contribute identifications in real time, is called telepresence science. The Falcor is specifically designed to support it, with high-speed satellite connections that beam clear video from the remote-operated vehicle up to the ship and then out to the internet simultaneously. Deep-sea research used to require every expert to be physically present on the boat. Now, a specialist in New Zealand can identify a squid spotted near Antarctica while sitting at her desk, hours after returning from her own Antarctic trip. If this expedition had happened 10 years earlier, the footage would have gone into storage. Someone eventually might have flagged the squid as interesting. The identification might have come months later, buried in a data review meeting without the drama or the immediacy, possibly without the full high-resolution footage needed to confirm the hooks that gave the species away. The juvenile colossal squid spent millions of years evolving to be invisible in dark water. A combination of the right camera at the right depth, a stranger watching a live stream, and two scientists who happened to be available on the same afternoon defeated that invisibility in about 4 hours. Scientists saw the footage and immediately flagged something else it revealed. Tiny colour-changing cells were visible on the juvenile's mantle in the high-resolution video. Nobody had expected to find those. Their purpose in a juvenile colossal squid is entirely unknown. It also raised a question about the animal's behaviour that no dead specimen had ever answered. The juvenile in the footage was holding its arms loosely spread above its head in what looked like a relaxed, drifting posture. Scientists who study glass squids recognise that pose. It is called the cockatoo position. Other glass squid species use it while resting. Seeing the colossal squid do the same confirmed that at least some of its basic behaviours match those of its relatives. But the bigger immediate question was why? If this squid had been living in these waters for 100 years of scientific searching, nobody had filmed an adult. The answer to that is one of the stranger facts about this animal. The juvenile squid in the 2025 footage was about 1 foot long and living at roughly 2,000 feet deep. That depth is reachable. Remote-operated vehicles go there regularly. Research vessels make that dive as a routine part of deep ocean work. Adult colossal squid live much deeper. As the squid matures, it sinks. The largest adults spend their time between 3,000 and 6,000 feet below the surface. Some evidence from the distribution of beak sizes found in whale stomachs suggests the very biggest animals live even deeper than that. 6,000 feet is a depth that requires specialised, expensive equipment to reach. The vehicles that go there are fewer, cost more to operate, and deal with pressures that can destroy poorly designed components. But depth alone does not explain why adults remain unfilmed. Kat Bolstad, after confirming the 2025 footage, explained to reporters that adult colossal squid are likely extremely sensitive to light and noise, the two things that deep-sea research equipment produces in abundance. A remote-operated vehicle moving through the water generates engine noise. Its lights are bright by deep-sea standards, blasting artificial illumination into a world that has been dark for all of evolutionary history. Any animal that has spent its entire existence in near-total silence and darkness would find the approach of that vehicle deeply alarming. An adult colossal squid sensing a vehicle approaching has simple options. It can sink deeper, it can move away. At its body size, moving away happens fast despite the squid's generally slow energy habits. Those arms and tentacles can generate a powerful jet-propelled burst of speed for short distances. The squid has no reason to stay and be examined. Adults are also considerably better camouflaged than juveniles. They lose the glassy transparency of the young animal and become a dark reddish-brown that blends with the deep water. At 6,000 feet, with only the artificial light of a research vehicle to work with, spotting a dark animal in dark water against the dark backdrop of the ocean is genuinely difficult. Then there is the sheer size of the search area. The Southern Ocean covers roughly 8 million square miles. The colossal squid's range stretches across much of that. Even running continuous camera surveys for years, the odds of placing a camera at exactly the right depth, in exactly the right part of the ocean, at exactly the moment an adult squid is close enough to detect, are extremely small. Scientists who study the deep ocean use a comparison that puts this in perspective. We have more detailed maps of the surface of Mars than we have of the deep ocean floor. The moon has been photographed more thoroughly than the bottom of the Southern Ocean. The colossal squid lives in a part of our own planet that remains less explored than the surface of other worlds. Finding an adult on camera is going to happen. Scientists believe it will, eventually. The equipment keeps improving. The search area keeps shrinking. But until it does, the adult colossal squid remains one of the largest animals on Earth that no living person has ever seen with their own eyes. And what that adult does for a living down there, once the cameras have gone and the darkness is total, is the real story. The colossal squid does not chase anything. That conclusion took scientists a long time to accept, because it seems wrong at first. An animal that large, that heavily armed, should be an active hunter, covering territory, running prey down. But the biology points in the opposite direction. The ammonium-rich tissue that keeps the squid neutrally buoyant makes it an efficient drifter. The cold water it lives in slows its metabolism to the minimum. The energy cost of high-speed pursuit in near-freezing water at high pressure over large distances would be enormous. So the squid waits. It hangs in the dark water column perfectly still, those enormous eyes open and scanning. The squid's eye structure makes it sensitive to movement in low-light conditions. Any bioluminescent flash, any disturbance in the water nearby registers. The squid detects the approach of prey before the prey has any reason to be concerned. When something enters range, the squid's response is designed around a single overwhelming moment of force. The two long feeding tentacles, each around 7 feet long, can shoot outward with speed that deep-sea cameras have only recently started to capture properly. The clubs at the end of those tentacles, packed with rotating hooks, make first contact. The hooks drive in and rotate. The 8 arms close around the prey from all sides. The beak begins working. The whole sequence, from the first tentacle strike to the prey being held by all available limbs, likely happens in under a second. Fish that live near colossal squid habitat show behavioural patterns consistent with living near an ambush predator. They move in tighter groups. They startle quickly. Their schooling behaviour, staying close together and changing direction as a group, is a response to a predator that strikes from a stationary position rather than one that chases from outside the school. Fish adapt to what hunts them. The colossal squid has shaped the behaviour of the animals around it simply by existing and waiting. The ambush strategy also explains the squid's arm structure. The arms are thick and short relative to body size because they are not reaching instruments. They are closing instruments. Once the tentacles have made contact, the arms surround the prey and prevent escape. The hooks on the arms lock into the struggling animal from multiple angles. By the time all 8 arms are engaged, nothing is getting away. Scientists believe the squid may also use its size and the pressure wave of its mantle to create small currents in the water, drawing curious or disoriented fish slightly closer before striking. This has not been confirmed in colossal squid specifically, but related species use similar passive attraction techniques. An animal that does not need to move to catch food has every reason to develop ways to bring food toward it. The patience required for this strategy is difficult to fully imagine. An animal sitting motionless in total darkness, in near freezing water, at crushing pressure, waiting for something to come close enough to grab, for hours, possibly for days between successful hunts. What makes this even harder to picture is that the squid does all this without sleeping the way land animals do. Cephalopods have periods of reduced activity, but the colossal squid likely maintains some level of awareness throughout, those huge eyes never fully closing, always scanning the dark for the next signal. The prey it is waiting for is more impressive than you might expect. The Patagonian toothfish is not a small animal. It grows to over 6 feet long. It can weigh more than 200 pounds. It has a powerful jaw filled with sharp teeth, a muscular body adapted to cold deep water, and it is itself an active predator that hunts squid, fish, and crustaceans through the deep Southern Ocean. It is one of the apex predators of its depth range. Fishing vessels specifically travel to Antarctic waters to catch it commercially, and it is so hard to find and difficult to land that it sells for some of the highest prices of any fish in the world. The colossal squid eats it. This is how scientists know. When sperm whales hunting in the Southern Ocean get examined, their stomachs contain colossal squid beaks. When the fisheries targeting Patagonian toothfish in Antarctic waters haul up their long lines, they sometimes find a colossal squid attached to the line, hooked onto a toothfish that was already caught. The squid had grabbed the hooked fish and refused to let go even as the line pulled upward toward the surface. That behaviour tells you something important. An animal that will hold on to prey all the way to the surface, through rapidly changing pressure, through increasing light and noise, is an animal that does not easily release what it has caught. The rotating hooks on those tentacle clubs lock in and stay locked. Fishermen who have brought colossal squid to the surface this way describe the grip as extraordinary. Even on a dead or dying squid, the hooks remain engaged. The colossal squid's beak processes a large fish like the toothfish in pieces, as described earlier, because the esophagus passing through the brain cannot accommodate large chunks. This means the squid spends time on each meal, systematically dismantling something that is itself a formidable animal. The toothfish does not simply sit still while this happens. The squid's arms, all 8 of them, hold the fish in place while the beak works. Colossal squid likely also eat other squid species, including smaller members of their own kind in some circumstances. Cannibalism has been observed in related cephalopod species, and the colossal squid's size advantage over younger, smaller squid makes them potential prey. This creates a strange dynamic where a juvenile colossal squid faces danger not only from sperm whales above it, but possibly from adult members of its own species below it. The squid's known diet, large fish and other squid, confirms something about its physical design. Every weapon it carries, the hooks, the beak, the powerful arms, the enormous reach of the tentacles, makes specific sense when you put a 6-foot toothfish in its grip. Each adaptation is sized correctly for that particular challenge. Scientists studying deep-sea fish communities in the Southern Ocean have found that toothfish populations tend to avoid certain depth zones during specific seasons. Researchers suspect the colossal squid's hunting pressure influences where those fish travel and when. An invisible predator shaping the behaviour of visible ones is a quiet kind of power. But the colossal squid, despite all those weapons, does not sit at the very top of its world. Something hunts it. Something larger, faster, and equipped with a weapon the squid has no defence against. That predator's arrival in the Southern Ocean changed the colossal squid's entire world, and the arms race between them has been running for tens of millions of years. Sperm whales are the largest predators with teeth in the history of life on Earth. An adult male sperm whale reaches 60 feet long. It weighs up to 60 tons. Its head takes up roughly 1/3 of its body length and is filled mostly with a waxy substance called spermaceti, which helps focus and amplify sound. Because the sperm whale is a mammal, it must breathe air. It comes to the surface every hour or so, fills its lungs, and then dives. Deep. The deepest confirmed sperm whale dive reached over 9,000 feet. The animal can hold its breath for around 90 minutes. It goes into the colossal squid's territory regularly, on purpose. The sperm whale does not hunt by sight. The deep ocean provides no light for that. It hunts by echolocation, generating powerful clicks from a specialized organ in its head and listening for the returning echoes. Those clicks are among the loudest sounds produced by any animal on Earth. In the water, they travel enormous distances and return with precise information about the location, size, and movement of anything nearby. The colossal squid's one advantage in this scenario has been millions of years in the making. The squid evolved in deep water where the primary predators were visual hunters, fish that relied on sight. The squid's transparency as a juvenile, its dark camouflage as an adult, its ability to drift without creating movement. All of it was useful against animals that hunted by looking. Against a whale that hunts by listening, most of those defences stop working. There is one possible counter. Researchers have proposed that the colossal squid's enormous eye may be able to detect the faint bioluminescent disturbance created when a large body moves through deep water. When a sperm whale descends toward the squid's depth, its mass displaces water, and that displacement agitates the tiny glowing organisms around it. A flash, a ripple of cold light. The squid may pick up that signal early enough to attempt escape. A colossal squid drifting motionless in the dark still has a body. That body reflects sound. The echolocation clicks of an approaching sperm whale hit the squid's flesh and bounce back, giving the whale a precise acoustic picture of where the squid is, how large it is, and whether it is worth diving for. The squid's stillness, its great survival strategy against visual predators, provides no protection against sound. Scientists believe the colossal squid can detect the pressure waves of an approaching sperm whale before the whale arrives. The huge eyes may catch the faint bioluminescent flashes disturbed by the whale's movement through the water. This gives the squid some warning, but a sperm whale in pursuit, once it has locked onto a target with echolocation, can swim faster than a large squid can jet away. The encounters between these two animals take place in absolute darkness, in water so cold it would kill a human in minutes, at depths that crush unprotected metal. No human has ever seen one happen directly, but there is proof that it does happen, and that it is violent. That proof is written directly on the skin of the whales themselves, in marks that took researchers decades to correctly interpret. Sperm whales carry scars. Researchers who study these animals have documented circular marks on the skin of sperm whales worldwide for decades. Early researchers attributed many of those marks to giant squid suction cup rings. The explanation made sense at the time. Giant squid were the famous species. The colossal squid was barely known. The circular scars looked like they could come from suction cups, so giant squid got the credit. Then scientists started looking more carefully at the Southern Ocean population of sperm whales, specifically the ones hunting in colossal squid territory. And they found something that changed the story. The scars on Southern Ocean sperm whales are different. They show puncture patterns consistent with hooks rather than suction cups. The spacing and shape of the marks line up with what the colossal squid's rotating hooks would produce when driven into flesh and then twisted. Giant squid use toothed suckers that leave a different signature entirely. The colossal squid, it turns out, may be responsible for some of the deepest and most dramatic scarring found on the largest predator in the ocean. Scientists have also found something inside sperm whale stomachs that confirms the scale of the relationship. Colossal squid beaks appear far more frequently in the stomachs of Southern Ocean sperm whales than giant squid beaks do. The whales are eating colossal squid regularly and in significant numbers. The stomach of a single sperm whale has yielded multiple colossal squid beaks at once, representing several separate meals. Marine ecologists Henk Jan Hoving and Fleur Visser published research examining this relationship in detail, gathering decades of scattered evidence into a single picture. They noted that every scar and every stomach beak represents a data point in a conflict that nobody has directly observed. Each mark is a record of something that happened in the dark, at depth, where no human instrument has yet been present at the right moment. What Hoving and Visser found most striking was how consistent the evidence was across different whale populations. Southern Ocean sperm whales examined across multiple decades and multiple research programs all showed the same hook scar patterns. This meant the encounters were regular, repeated, and happening on a scale large enough to leave permanent marks across an entire whale population. The hooks leave their marks because the colossal squid does not simply accept being caught. When a sperm whale closes in, the squid responds. Its arms and tentacles, armed with those rotating hooks, drive into the whale's skin and hold on. The squid pulls and fights, the hooks rotate and bite deeper. A sperm whale trying to swallow a fighting colossal squid is dealing with an animal actively destroying the inside of its mouth. Whales that survive these encounters carry the record of them permanently. Some individuals show extensive scarring across their faces and lower jaws, areas that would make direct contact during prey capture. Scientists reading those scars can estimate roughly how large the squid was that caused them, based on the spacing and depth of the marks. Those estimates sometimes produce numbers larger than any squid ever brought to the surface. The battles happening in the dark, deep ocean are between animals larger than any specimen scientists have ever physically examined. And the whale has another weapon in this fight that the squid was completely unprepared for, evolutionarily speaking. For most of the colossal squid's evolutionary history, hiding was enough. For hundreds of millions of years, the deep ocean was dominated by animals that hunted with their eyes. Fish, prehistoric marine reptiles, early sharks. All of them relied primarily on vision to locate prey. The colossal squid's ancestors built up an extraordinary set of tools for avoiding visual detection. Transparency in youth, dark camouflage in adulthood, the ability to drift without making a movement signature, perfect stillness in total darkness. Then, approximately 34 million years ago, something entered the ocean that changed the rules entirely. Toothed whales developed echolocation. The research by Hoving and Visser identified this moment as what they called an unprecedented armament in the history of the squid-predator relationship. For the first time in hundreds of millions of years of cephalopod evolution, a major predator hunted by sound rather than sight. All the adaptations built up over geological time to avoid visual detection became irrelevant in a single evolutionary shift. A sperm whale producing echolocation clicks sends sound waves through the water in every direction simultaneously. Those waves travel faster in water than in air, roughly 1 mile per second. They pass through flesh and reflect from objects with different densities. The returning echo gives the whale information that sight in clear water at midday could not match. It tells the whale exactly where something is, how big it is, and how dense it is, all in the time it takes for a click to travel out and return. The colossal squid's body reflects those clicks. The ammonium-rich buoyant tissue inside the mantle, which has a different density than the surrounding seawater, creates a distinct acoustic reflection. The squid may actually be more visible to a hunting sperm whale than a fish of similar size, precisely because the buoyancy chemistry that makes it an efficient floater also makes it acoustically detectable. Scientists have analysed sperm whale foraging patterns using acoustic tracking equipment attached to living whales. The data shows that individual sperm whales on a foraging dive fan out from the group, each hunting alone in a different section of the water column, while staying in loose acoustic contact with the rest of the pod. A single pod sweeping through a section of the Southern Ocean on a series of dives can cover an enormous volume of water. Some individuals appear to catch hundreds of squid-sized prey animals per day. The squid's response to this pressure, built up over 34 million years of evolution, took a direction that scientists only recently began to appreciate. The colossal squid grew larger. Larger body means more energy required for a predator to capture and subdue it. Larger body means better odds of survival in a physical fight with a whale. The enormous eyes that detect whale-disturbed bioluminescence, the rotating hooks that drive into whale skin during a fight, the dense muscle concentrated in the arms, all of it may represent millions of years of evolutionary response to sperm whale hunting pressure specifically. The predator shaped the prey, and the prey shaped back. The whale-squid relationship has been running as an arms race for 34 million years, and it is still unresolved. Both animals keep getting more sophisticated. The whale's echolocation keeps the pressure on. The squid's size and weapons push back, and somewhere in the deep Southern Ocean, right now, that arms race is playing out in the dark. But what the squid does when it loses that encounter is a story written in the stomach contents of whales, and it is more revealing than you might expect. The sperm whale wins most of the time. Scientists know this because the evidence in whale stomachs is overwhelmingly one-directional. colossal squid beaks inside sperm whale stomachs, colossal squid tissue inside sperm whale stomachs, colossal squid hooks inside sperm whale stomachs, recovered still embedded in the whale's mouth lining in some cases. The squid ends up inside the whale far more often than the reverse happens. But there is something unusual about what survives of a colossal squid inside a sperm whale's digestive system. The soft tissue dissolves fast. The stomach acid of a sperm whale breaks down squid muscle, mantle, and skin within hours. A colossal squid consumed at depth during a dive may be largely dissolved before the whale even returns to the surface to breathe. The 1,100-pound body of a colossal squid can disappear almost completely in a matter of hours inside a whale's digestive system. The beak remains. Scientists opening whale stomachs find those hard black beaks sitting in the stomach, inert, piled up from multiple meals. In some cases, a whale stomach yields dozens of beaks from different squid taken over weeks. A single stomach can hold more colossal squid beaks than the total number of complete colossal squid specimens ever examined by science. The indestructible beaks outlast the entire animal that once held them. This creates a strange situation for research. The beak is the most informative piece of evidence available, but it also represents the end of the animal's story. By the time scientists find a beak, the animal it came from is gone. What the squid was doing before it was caught, how it moved, whether it was hunting or resting, where exactly it was in the water column, all of that information died with the soft tissue. Researchers have developed a method for extracting some information from beaks anyway. The beak grows in layers, similar to tree rings, and those layers record chemical signals from the squid's diet over time. By analysing beak chemistry carefully, scientists can build a rough history of what an individual squid ate throughout its life, and where in the ocean it likely lived based on those chemical signatures. It is like reading a diary written in atomic structure rather than words. Those chemical histories show that individual colossal squid have quite different diets from one another, suggesting the animals spread out across large areas of the Southern Ocean rather than clustering together. They are solitary hunters covering separate territories, each one moving through its section of the deep water independently. And some of those chemical histories point to squid that lived for a long time, long enough to grow very large, long enough to survive multiple encounters with sperm whales, long enough to build up years of dietary data recorded in those layers of beak chemistry. The biggest beaks found in sperm whale stomachs belong to squid significantly larger than anything ever brought to the surface alive or dead. Those squid lived long enough and grew large enough to leave marks on whales that researchers still struggle to explain. They are out there right now, somewhere below the surface of the Southern Ocean, in the dark. And the tools the squid uses to survive in that darkness, including one biological feature that might be its most mysterious of all, go far deeper than hooks and beaks. On the 2007 specimen, the one brought to the surface by that New Zealand fishing vessel, scientists noticed something odd near the eyes. Small clusters of tissue sat along the outer edge of each enormous eye. Tissue with a structure consistent with a photophore, a biological light-producing organ. This was unexpected. The eyes themselves were already the most extraordinary visual organs ever recorded in any animal, but light-producing tissue surrounding those eyes pointed towards something that a dead, frozen body could not begin to explain. What those photophores actually do is a genuine open question. Scientists have proposed several possibilities, and each one is stranger than the last. The first idea is that the glow helps the squid see at very close range during a strike. In total darkness, the enormous eyes detect faint bioluminescent signals across a meaningful distance. But when prey enters striking range right in front of the tentacles, the ambient light at that extreme proximity may not be enough for fine targeting. A ring of light around each eye would illuminate the immediate strike zone at the critical moment of contact, letting the squid aim with precision that darkness would otherwise deny it. The second idea is more unsettling. Some researchers believe the photophores work as a lure. The colossal squid hangs motionless in total darkness. Its body produces no movement and no sound, but around each eye a faint glow pulses in the black water. To a deep-sea fish already using bioluminescence to navigate, that glow could look like another creature drifting nearby, something worth approaching, something to investigate, and then the arms close. The squid would be using its own eyes, the organs designed to find prey, as bait to bring prey into range. It would be hunting with its face. A third possibility involves the sperm whale. If the photophores can switch off rapidly and completely, the squid might use them in reverse, going dark the moment a large predator gets close, eliminating any signal that would reveal its position to echolocation-assisted sight. Glow when hunting. Go completely dark when hunted. The same tissue serving opposite survival functions depending on the threat level. None of these ideas has been confirmed. Studying bioluminescent organs in a dead specimen reveals the structure but not the behaviour. The tissue chemistry tells you the organ is capable of producing light. It cannot tell you when the squid activates it, how bright the light gets, what pattern it projects, or how the squid controls it. All of that requires watching a living adult over an extended period at depth, an observation that has never been successfully made. What the photophore discovery establishes is that the colossal squid carries more tools than its physical anatomy alone reveals. The hooks and beak and arms are visible on a dead body. The light organs around the eyes suggest a behavioural layer operating in the dark that nobody anticipated finding. An animal that may actively control its own visibility, choosing to be seen or invisible based on the situation, is operating at a level of environmental sophistication that its status as an invertebrate should not predict. And if a ring of light around an eye reveals that kind of complexity, the brain controlling that light raises an equally interesting question. The colossal squid has a brain. That sentence seems obvious, but it carries more weight for this animal than it does for most others. The colossal squid belongs to the cephalopods, the group that includes octopuses, cuttlefish and nautiluses. Cephalopods possess the most complex nervous systems of any invertebrate on Earth, and they developed them completely independently from the brains of vertebrates like fish, birds, and mammals. 600 to 800 million years ago, the ancestors of cephalopods and the ancestors of humans shared a common starting point on the tree of life. After that moment, the two lineages diverged and never crossed paths again genetically. And yet, both of them independently arrived at large, complicated brains capable of sophisticated behaviour through entirely different genetic and developmental routes. Scientists at Stanford studying how nervous systems evolve describe this parallel as one of the most striking examples of convergent evolution ever documented in biology. Two lineages, separated for hundreds of millions of years, both found their way to complex intelligence through completely different mechanisms. Studying how the cephalopod brain works teaches us something fundamental about intelligence itself, why it keeps arising independently rather than being a single evolutionary accident, and what the minimum requirements for a complex mind actually are. In squid, the brain sits inside a protective structure called cranial cartilage, the closest thing a squid has to a skull. The brain is compact relative to the animal's total body size, but its architecture is dense and highly specialised. Research on cephalopod genomes has found that squid carry over 100 protocadarian genes. These molecules direct the precise wiring of neurons to each other during brain development. In most invertebrates, protocadarians are essentially absent. In humans and other vertebrates, they exist but in relatively modest numbers. In cephalopods, they appear in quantities exceeding those found in any vertebrate genome yet sequenced, including our own. The squid genome, in other words, carries more genetic tools for building a complex brain than the human genome does. Whatever that genetic abundance produces in terms of neural architecture is present in every cephalopod, including the colossal squid. For the colossal squid specifically, nobody has been able to study what that intelligence looks like in behaviour. The animal has never been observed long enough or closely enough in its natural environment to watch it make decisions across changing conditions. Scientists infer from evidence. The ambush strategy demands patience and precise timing across long, quiet intervals. Detecting the bioluminescent disturbance of an approaching sperm whale and responding correctly requires processing complex real-time environmental signals. The possible use of photophores as a lure requires active manipulation of the surrounding environment rather than simple reactive behaviour. These are not reflexes. They suggest a mind that monitors, evaluates changing conditions, and selects among behavioural options. Whether the colossal squid has any inner experience at all, whether there is something it feels like to be this animal hanging in the cold, dark water with those enormous eyes open, is a question science cannot yet answer for any creature. But the brain is there. It is more sophisticated than most people assume, and it is complicated enough that the question is worth taking seriously. The colossal squid may be the most intelligent animal alive that science knows almost nothing about. That alone is a remarkable thing to sit with. Most deep-sea predators have a fixed relationship with light. They either hide from it, staying dark to avoid detection, or they produce it, using bioluminescence as a lure or a communication signal. These two strategies tend to work against each other. An animal actively producing light also reveals its own position to anything dangerous that can see it. Evidence from closely related squid species suggests the colossal squid may operate with more flexibility than either fixed strategy allows. It may switch between approaches depending on the situation, treating light as an active variable rather than a constant biological trait. In the giant squid, which belongs to a separate but related deep-sea squid lineage, researchers have documented what appears to be bioluminescent flashing used in the context of hunting. The light arrives in rapid bursts from structures near the body. Scientists believe these flashes temporarily blind or disorient prey in the extreme darkness, the same way a camera flash in a completely dark room leaves a person unable to see clearly for several seconds afterward. The prey is still physically present in that moment, but its vision is disrupted. The tentacles arrive before sight recovers. The colossal squid's photophores are positioned differently from those in the giant squid. The placement around the eye, pointing forward, focuses any light output toward the space directly in front of the animal. This front-facing design fits both the lure theory explored in the last chapter and the disorientation flash theory. Both require light directed outward ahead of the squid rather than spreading in all directions. There is also a strategy documented in other glass squid relatives called counter-illumination. An animal generating bioluminescence on its underside can match the faint ambient light filtering down from above, cancelling out its own shadow against that background light. Predators searching from below for silhouettes of prey against the dim glow above cannot see an animal that lights itself to match that glow. The animal becomes transparent not physically, but photonically, blending with its background by matching it precisely. Scientists cannot confirm yet whether adult colossal squid use counter-illumination, but the glass squid family, to which the colossal squid belongs, includes species that use exactly this strategy. The juvenile filmed in 2025 was already physically transparent, which achieves the same silhouette-cancelling effect by simpler means. Whether the darker adult uses active bioluminescence to compensate for the transparency it has lost is an open experimental question. What these possibilities add to the picture is behavioural depth that researchers had not anticipated finding. An invertebrate in the deep ocean actively managing its own light signature, choosing visibility or invisibility depending on whether it is hunting or avoiding being hunted, is operating in a way that most people reserve for thinking about much more complex animals. The darkness is a resource the colossal squid actively deploys. The life the squid builds inside that darkness begins and transforms in ways as surprising as the animal itself. Consider what all of this adds up to. An invertebrate, no backbone, no shell, descended from the same mollusk ancestors as garden snails, has independently evolved the largest eyes in animal history, a brain with more neural wiring genes than a human genome, rotating hooks, a pressure-resistant body, and possibly a sophisticated light management strategy, that switches between lure, flash, camouflage, and concealment depending on the moment. Each of those features arose separately. Together they describe something that does not fit the usual picture of what an invertebrate can be. One of the largest gaps in colossal squid science is so obvious that once you hear it, it sounds almost absurd. Nobody has ever seen two colossal squid in the same place at the same time. All the evidence gathered so far points to a deeply solitary animal. The beak chemistry studies, which reconstruct individual dietary histories from the layered structure of a single beak, show that different individual squid ate from different parts of the Southern Ocean, not the same locations. The geographic spread of beak recoveries from sperm whale stomachs covers the entire circumpolar Southern Ocean, rather than clustering in any one zone, consistent with animals living widely separated from one another. The squid hunt alone. They drift alone, which creates a genuine biological problem. For the species to continue existing, individuals must find each other at some point. Across 8 million square miles of near-freezing lightless ocean, two animals that have spent their entire lives becoming invisible to everything around them must somehow locate each other and reproduce. Scientists believe the male colossal squid, like males in related squid species, uses a specialized arm to deliver packages of sperm called spermatophores to the female. In some closely related deep-sea cephalopods, the male drives these packages directly into the female's body tissue, using a structure that functions like a hypodermic needle. The female stores the sperm internally for weeks or months until her eggs are developmentally ready. A female colossal squid examined at Te Papa contained thousands of developing eggs inside her ovaries. Another specimen had a nidamental gland, the structure responsible for packaging eggs before release. The reproductive biology exists and is functional. Nobody has witnessed any stage of the process occurring. Scientists suspect chemical signaling plays a role in locating mates across the vast dark ocean. Many deep-sea animals living in dispersed populations leave chemical trails that persist in slow-moving water for hours. A female colossal squid releasing a chemical signal into the deep current of the Southern Ocean might attract males from a meaningful distance. Whether the colossal squid actually uses this mechanism is an inference borrowed from related species, not a confirmed behaviour. Some evidence suggests female colossal squid are occasionally found at shallower depths than typical adults, which may mean females rise toward the surface layer during spawning periods. If this is correct, it could concentrate both sexes into a zone where encounters are more likely during specific seasons, using the slight warming of Antarctic summer as a reproductive trigger. None of this has been watched in practice. A female is estimated to be capable of producing over 4 million eggs in a single reproductive event. That number is extraordinary for any large animal. Releasing 4 million eggs at once suggests a reproduction strategy built entirely around overwhelming the odds through quantity rather than protection. Most of those eggs will be eaten, or will fail to develop, or will hatch into juveniles that die quickly in a cold ocean full of predators. The ones that survive will become the next generation of the largest invertebrates on Earth. The male that fertilizes those eggs, what happens immediately after mating for both animals, and how long either of them lives afterward is completely unknown. The colossal squid maintains its mystery even at the moment its next generation begins. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current is the largest and most powerful ocean current on Earth. It flows continuously around the entire continent of Antarctica, with no landmass interrupting it in any direction, driven by relentless westerly winds that blow unobstructed across open water. The current carries roughly 600 times more water per second than the Amazon River moves in the same period. Anything drifting inside it goes where it goes, circling Antarctica eastward in a ring that never breaks and never stops. A colossal squid egg mass released into that current would begin a journey with no fixed destination. Over days, it would move eastward at the speed of the surrounding water, joining billions of other particles suspended in the surface and near-surface layers. Over weeks and months, That journey could cover thousands of miles while keeping the egg mass within roughly the same band of latitude surrounding Antarctica. This pattern has an implication that scientists find genuinely striking. If all colossal squid eggs drift in the same circumpolar current, the entire Southern Ocean population exchanges genes continuously across the full ring. A clutch of eggs released near the coast of South Georgia could hatch into juveniles that eventually grow, mature, and breed near the Kerguelen Islands thousands of miles away. Genetic material mixes across the entire Southern Ocean with every generation, carried by the current that runs through all of it. This matters for the species' resilience against disruption. If a warming event, a food web collapse, or an unusual predation pressure kills a significant portion of the population in one region, surviving animals and incoming juvenile cohorts from the rest of the ring can replenish the affected zone. The current acts as a continuous genetic distribution system, linking every part of the squid's range to every other part. The population is one population, despite covering millions of square miles. But that same current makes studying the eggs essentially impossible with current technology. An egg mass released at a known location would be tens of miles away within a day, and hundreds of miles away within a week. The Southern Ocean has no permanent research stations spread across its open surface. Research voyages follow specific routes to specific ports, and do not patrol the open ocean systematically. An egg mass drifting between those routes could float through its entire development cycle without any instrument recording it. The juvenile filmed in 2025 was already past the earlier stage of development. It was 1 foot long and living at 600 meters deep, suggesting it had been alive for some time already. Somewhere between the egg that produced it and the moment the camera found it, an entire early chapter of the squid's life happened completely without any witness on the planet. The colossal squid hides even at its smallest. Scientists have proposed using autonomous underwater vehicles, robots that can run continuous patrols through remote ocean sections without a support ship nearby, to eventually locate egg masses or very early stage juveniles. These vehicles could run loops through the Southern Ocean surface layer during the Antarctic summer, photographing the water column systematically rather than searching at random. The technology exists in prototype form, but no program has deployed it at the scale needed to survey a meaningful fraction of the colossal squid's range. The Southern Ocean is simply too vast and too dangerous to work in for the current level of investment in deep-sea research to cover it adequately. The eggs are there. The current is carrying them right now. Finding them is a matter of will and resources, both of which remain limited. The transparent 1 foot long glass creature filmed in 2025 and a fully grown 1,100-pound adult with dark reddish-brown skin and arms bristling with rotating hooks are the same species. Shown side by side without context, a person who did not already know would need to be told. The transformation between juvenile and adult colossal squid is one of the most dramatic developmental changes documented in any deep-sea animal. It is driven by growth, depth, and time, and it occurs entirely out of the reach of any camera yet deployed in the Southern Ocean. Juvenile colossal squid occupy what oceanographers call the mesopelagic zone, the twilight layer between roughly 300 and 1,600 feet deep. In this zone, small traces of light filter down from the surface above. The pressure is significant but not extreme. The temperature is near freezing but consistent. Juveniles drift here, feeding on small organisms and growing, while remaining nearly invisible against the surrounding water. As the squid grows larger, the transparency fades. Scientists believe this happens because the ratio of ammonium-rich gel tissue to denser organ and muscle tissue shifts with increasing body mass. On a small juvenile, the gel tissue dominates, and light passes through the body with minimal obstruction. As the animal accumulates muscle and organ mass, those denser tissues block more light. The body progressively loses its see-through quality and darkens toward the reddish-brown of the adult. Simultaneously, gravity pulls the larger, denser body downward. The colossal squid, conserving energy, does not fight this actively. It allows itself to sink deeper as it grows, settling eventually into the adult depth range where the larger specimens spend their lives hundreds to thousands of feet below where the juvenile was found. The hooks on the arms, already visible and already the identifying feature in the 2025 footage, grow proportionally with the rest of the animal. On the 1-foot juvenile, they are tiny and needle-sharp, almost delicate looking under the camera light. On an adult with arms as thick as a human thigh, the same hooks have become substantial curved weapons strong enough to drive into whale hide and hold through the struggle that follows. The eyes scale proportionally as well. The juvenile already shows eyes large relative to its tiny body, built to the same design as the adult's but miniature. The adult's dinner plate eyes grew that way because the eyes kept pace with the rest of the animal across years of development in the dark. What triggers the final phase of maturation, when the squid develops fully functional reproductive organs, is unknown. Whether both sexes mature at the same age is unknown. Both known adult female specimens were identified as approaching, but not quite at full reproductive maturity, meaning science has not yet examined a fully adult female at the peak of her biological development. Two completely different looking animals, one a glass ghost barely visible in the water column, and one a dark armoured heavyweight at the top of a food chain, share a single identity. The story connecting them has never been told. What the 2025 footage proved is that the transformation must be survivable and relatively common, because the species clearly produces enough surviving adults to sustain a population large enough to feed tens of millions of tons of sperm whale biomass per year. Something that starts as a 1-foot piece of floating glass becomes an 1,100-pound ambush predator with the largest eyes in animal history. Every colossal squid that has ever been examined went through that transformation. Every single one did it without a single human watching. A pattern in the deep ocean consistently turns otherwise ordinary animals into giants, and scientists are still working out the full explanation for why. Biologists call it abyssal gigantism. Across many separate animal groups, deep-sea species grow significantly larger than their shallow water counterparts. Isopods, essentially the pill bugs found under damp rocks in any backyard, reach the size of a football in the deep ocean. Amphipods, tiny shrimp-like crustaceans barely visible in shallow water, grow large enough in the deep to hold in 2 cupped hands. Sea spiders in Antarctic waters spread wide enough to cover a dinner plate with their legs. And the colossal squid, the most extreme representative of this phenomenon in the invertebrate world, grows to weigh as much as a large grizzly bear. Multiple theories attempt to explain the pattern, and scientists currently believe the answer requires several of them working together rather than any single cause. Cold water carries more dissolved oxygen than warm water. At the near-freezing temperatures of the deep Southern Ocean, the water holds enough oxygen to support the metabolic requirements of a very large body. In warmer surface waters, dissolved oxygen availability limits the maximum sustainable body size. The cold removes that ceiling, allowing growth to continue well past the point where it would plateau in a warmer ocean. More oxygen means more energy available to maintain large tissue volumes. Scarcity of food works in the same direction. When prey is rare and encounters between predator and prey are infrequent, a body that stores more energy in fat and tissue can survive longer between successful hunts. A larger animal burns its stored energy more slowly relative to its body mass than a smaller one. In an environment where famine periods are long, large body size is a survival advantage that natural selection consistently rewards over time. Reduced predation deepens the effect further. In shallow water, dozens of predator species target medium and large prey actively. In the deep ocean, predator diversity drops sharply. A large animal that would face threats from many directions near the surface may face only 1 or 2 serious predators at depth. With less selection pressure towards staying small and fast for escaping multiple hunters, body size can expand unchecked by the usual constraints. For the colossal squid, all 3 of these factors apply simultaneously: cold, oxygen-rich water. prey scattered enough to make large energy reserves valuable, and before toothed whales developed echolocation 34 million years ago, a deep ocean environment where almost nothing could effectively threaten a large cephalopod. The squid is not an anomaly. It is the expected result when every deep-sea rule for gigantism points in the same direction at once. What makes the colossal squid's gigantism particularly striking is that the animal achieves its mass without bones. The largest animal on Earth by mass, the blue whale, is a vertebrate built around a structural skeleton. The largest invertebrate, the colossal squid, reaches its size through soft tissue, gel, fluid, and chitin. The body plan that most people associate with small, fragile creatures, snails, slugs, clams, squid, has in the deepest part of the Southern Ocean produced an animal that would fill a pickup truck bed. Abyssal gigantism operating on a soft body without a skeleton is one of the more remarkable outcomes of deep ocean evolution. The pressure that comes with that depth is its own extraordinary environment, and the squid lives inside it as though the physics of the surface world simply do not apply to it. At sea level, the weight of the air column above you presses down on your body with a force that scientists measure as 1 atmosphere. Your biology is built for exactly that amount of pressure. Your lungs inflate against it. Your blood pressure works within it. Every structural tissue in your body functions correctly under that specific load. At 6,000 feet below the surface, where adult colossal squids spend their lives, the pressure reaches roughly 180 atmospheres. 180 times the force pressing in from every direction at once. A human body placed at that depth without protection would be destroyed in under a second. The air-filled spaces in your lungs would collapse instantly. The bones of your skull would fracture inward. Fluids would be driven through your body tissues by the surrounding pressure before any other process had time to register it. The colossal squid lives there permanently, and every biological system in its body functions normally. This works because the squid carries no compressible air spaces. Air collapses under pressure because it can be squeezed into a smaller volume. Water is nearly incompressible. An animal whose body is primarily fluid transmits external pressure evenly throughout its tissues, rather than allowing any single enclosed space to bear the force alone. The squid becomes effectively pressure equalized, its internal pressure matching the surrounding water, so no single structure is crushed from outside while hollow from within. The buoyancy providing ammonium chloride saturating the squid's tissues is also chemically stable and mechanically functional at deep-sea pressures. The buoyancy the chemical provides works identically at 6,000 feet as it does at the surface. Changing depth does not change the squid's ability to float neutrally in the water column. The eyes present a particular engineering achievement, keeping a large fluid-filled sphere from collapsing under 180 atmospheres of external pressure, while keeping the sphere optically clear and precisely shaped, requires a combination of material strength and geometry that took millions of years of selection to produce. The colossal squid's eye has a rigid reinforced lens and a tough outer wall that resists the surrounding pressure without distorting the optical path inside it. An eye that changed shape even fractionally under pressure would blur its own vision, rendering the animal's most critical hunting tool useless. The arm and tentacle muscles perform at full strength at depth, because muscle tissue, being water-dense, is pressure equalized like everything else. A tentacle strike at 6,000 feet generates the same force as one at 600. This also explains why specimens brought to the surface are imperfect scientific subjects. At sea level pressure, tissues calibrated to function under 180 atmospheres behave differently. They expand, soften, and change in ways that make the surface specimen a physically altered version of the living animal at depth. The eyes in particular lose their shape rapidly as they decompress, which is why measurements taken from dead specimens consistently underestimate the diameter of the living eye. The deep ocean presses down on everything inside it, with forces that would destroy any human-made structure not specifically engineered for that environment. The colossal squid is not engineered. It was built by evolution over hundreds of millions of years to live inside those forces as if they were ordinary. The animal does not survive in spite of the pressure. It survives because of what it became inside it. By 2015, scientists had collected exactly 12 complete colossal squid specimens across all of recorded history. 12. Of those 12, only 6 were fully adult animals. To put that number in perspective, there are more complete fossilized skeletons of some dinosaur species in museums worldwide than there are complete colossal squid specimens. Animals that went extinct 66 million years ago are better documented in physical collections than the largest invertebrate currently alive on Earth. Every one of those 12 specimens arrived through the same narrow channel. Almost all were caught accidentally, tangled on the long lines of fishing vessels targeting Antarctic toothfish in the Ross Sea and surrounding waters. The squid had grabbed a fish already hooked on the line and refused to let go, hauled toward the surface as an unintended passenger on a commercial operation. A small number of others were found floating dead near the surface or washed onto beaches, already dying from unknown causes. None were caught deliberately. No research expedition designed specifically to catch a colossal squid has ever succeeded. The animal lives too deep, moves too infrequently, and occupies too vast an ocean for targeted collection to work with any equipment currently in existence. Every specimen in any museum anywhere on Earth arrived by accident and circumstance rather than scientific planning. The beak recovered from each specimen outlasted all the soft tissue and told its own additional story. When scientists compared the beak from the 2007 specimen, the largest squid ever physically weighed, against beaks previously pulled from sperm whale stomachs, they found that the museum specimen's beak was smaller than several whale stomach examples. Smaller, measured directly, not estimated. The largest squid ever brought to the surface was outweighed by animals that were eaten by whales and left only a beak. Those larger whale stomach beaks, when processed through the established formula relating beak dimensions to body mass, project animals significantly heavier than the 1,100-pound museum specimen. Some of those projected animals approach 1,500 pounds. They have never been caught. They have never been photographed. They exist in the scientific record only as an inference from a piece of hard black chitin recovered from inside a sperm whale stomach, sometimes decades ago. The 12 complete specimens are not simply rare samples, they are the only direct physical evidence that has ever existed of what this animal looks like. Every known detail about colossal squid anatomy comes from examining those 12 bodies. 100 years after the species was named, the total physical evidence available to science fits in a few museum storage tanks. The ocean has kept almost everything. What little it has released suggests the rest is larger. What makes the 12 specimen count especially striking is that scientists have been aware of this animal's existence and actively looking for specimens for 100 years. In that entire time, 12 complete individuals. Compare that to the blue whale, where strandings, vessel sightings and satellite tagging have produced thousands of data points over a similar period. The colossal squid lives in a place so difficult to reach and so hostile to casual observation that 100 years of awareness has produced less physical evidence than a single good blue whale stranding season. Each of those 12 specimens was studied as carefully as possible, given the technology available at the time of recovery. The 2007 specimen, the largest and best preserved, was examined by multiple specialist scientists and webcast to a global audience. And yet even that specimen, the gold standard of colossal squid science, left the most fundamental questions unanswered. The ocean has kept almost everything. What it has released suggests the rest is larger. 55 colossal squid beaks have been recovered from sperm whale stomachs across the Southern Ocean. Each one tells a partial story, and the partial stories add up to something significant. By the time a beak arrives in a whale's stomach, it is already separated from almost everything that once surrounded it. Whale stomach acid breaks down squid muscle, skin, mantle, and organ tissue within hours of ingestion. The chitin beak resists all of it. Inert and essentially indestructible, It sits at the bottom of the stomach while the rest of the squid disappears. Beaks from multiple separate meals accumulate over time. A Southern Ocean sperm whale feeding regularly on colossal squid builds up a collection inside its stomach across weeks and months of hunting. Scientists sorting through whale stomach contents separate these beaks carefully, measure each one precisely, and enter the measurements into a database that has been building since the first specimens were collected. The measurement matters because the size of the lower beak is directly proportional to the total body mass of the animal it came from. This relationship was established by measuring beaks from the 12 known complete specimens and comparing each measurement to the recorded body weight of that specimen. Once the formula is validated, any beak can yield a reliable estimate of the body mass of the animal it came from, even if that animal was fully digested years or decades ago. Running those calculations across all 55 recovered beaks produces a spread of estimated sizes. Most fall within a range consistent with squid weighing between 600 and 1100 pounds, matching the range of complete specimens scientists have physically examined. But several beaks in the dataset are larger than anything in that range produces. The body mass calculations for those larger beaks project animals significantly heavier than any squid ever brought intact to the surface. The largest projected animals approach 1500 pounds. They existed somewhere in the Southern Ocean during the period when the whales that ate them were alive and their stomachs were sampled. Those animals were caught by sperm whales, fully digested within hours, and left behind only their beaks. Everything else about them, the exact dimensions of their eyes, the arm length and hook spacing, the total body weight precisely measured, went into the whale and did not come out. Scientists have also found a way to extract time depth information from beaks. The beak grows in layers, similar to tree rings, and each layer incorporates stable isotope ratios from the squid's diet during that growth period. Reading the chemistry layer by layer reconstructs what an individual squid ate over months or years of its life, and where in the ocean those food sources indicate the squid was living. Individual squid show distinct dietary histories from one another, consistent with animals that live in separate home territories across the Southern Ocean, rather than gathering in groups. The beak is the colossal squid's only permanent autobiography. There is something quietly extraordinary about this. An animal weighing close to 1,000 pounds, living at the top of a deep ocean food chain, leaves behind almost nothing when it dies. Its soft tissue dissolves inside the animal that killed it. Its eyes decompress and collapse. Its arms and hooks are digested. All that persists is a small curved piece of chitin, one data point in a database slowly building a picture of an animal science has barely seen. 55 data points across 100 years from 8 million square miles of ocean, each one the entire life's record of an animal that may have lived a decade and grown to weigh 800 pounds. It survives everything else. On February 22, 2007, the New Zealand fishing vessel San Aspiring was working the Ross Sea in Antarctic waters, running long lines for Patagonian toothfish exactly as it had done on every other working day of that voyage. The crew dropped baited hooks down into the cold dark water and hauled them back up with fish attached, a standard operation in a remote and difficult ocean. One section of the line came up heavier than a fish should have been. As the line rose, the crew saw a squid attached to one of the already hooked toothfish, a large squid gripping the fish with its arms, utterly refusing to release its hold even as the line pulled steadily upward from several hundred meters below. The squid was still holding on when it reached the surface. By that point, the animal was barely alive. Rapid pressure change and temperature shock kill deep-sea animals quickly during ascent, and this squid was dying as it arrived at the surface. The crew recognized they were looking at something exceptional in scale. They got the animal into the ship's onboard freezer before decomposition could begin and changed course toward port. In Wellington, the squid was transferred frozen to the Museum of New Zealand Te Papa. Scientists faced an immediate problem. The animal was locked inside a solid block of ice, and defrosting it at room temperature would take long enough for the outer layers to rot before the center thawed. The museum seriously considered using industrial microwave equipment, scaled up to handle an object this size, the kind used commercially for treating timber. They ultimately decided to thaw the specimen slowly in chilled saline solution over several days, preventing decomposition while also protecting the tissues from ice crystal damage during the process. When fully thawed and weighed, the squid registered at 495 kilograms, just under 1,100 pounds. The mantle measured roughly 8 feet long. One eye, measured from the partly collapsed dead tissue, came in at about 4.5 inches across. Scientists calculated that in the living animal at depth, with the eye fully pressurized and fluid-filled, the diameter had likely been between 12 and 16 inches. An endoscope inserted into the body cavity found ovaries containing thousands of developing eggs. The animal was female, approaching but not quite at full reproductive maturity. When scientists measured the beak and compared it to beaks recovered from sperm whale stomachs, they found this specimen's beak was smaller than several whale stomach examples. The largest squid ever physically weighed was not the largest squid in the Southern Ocean. Whale stomach beak calculations project animals significantly heavier than this one. They are still out there. They have never been caught. The 2007 specimen went on display at Te Papa in December of 2008. More than 800,000 people in over 180 countries watched the live webcast of a second specimen examination in 2014. Both remain among the most extraordinary biological specimens held anywhere on Earth. The beak from the 2007 specimen, smaller than several found in whale stomachs, is a quiet reminder sitting in a museum display case in New Zealand. Somewhere in the Southern Ocean, animals larger than the one in that case are drifting right now in water that no research ship is visiting. They are not aware of the museum. They are not aware of any of this. They are simply waiting in the dark, the same way they always have. The list of confirmed facts about the colossal squid fits in a few paragraphs. The list of what scientists genuinely do not know takes much longer. Nobody knows the lifespan. Estimates range from around 3 years to possibly a decade or more, based on comparisons with related species and estimates of growth rate. No individual animal has ever been monitored across any significant portion of its life. A squid cannot be tagged at depth and followed. Radio signals do not pass through water. Acoustic tags require a nearby receiver to pick up the ping, and the colossal squid's territory covers millions of square miles of remote ocean, with no fixed monitoring infrastructure anywhere within it. Nobody knows the population size with useful precision. Estimates built from sperm whale stomach data, which require assumptions about how much a whale eats, how often it hunts, and how many squid it takes per dive, produce rough order of magnitude numbers that scientists treat with significant caution. One analysis suggested the total biomass could be measured in tens of millions of tons. That number carries so many layers of uncertain assumptions that researchers present it as an estimate of the right order of magnitude rather than a figure anyone should rely on. Nobody knows the growth rate. A 1-foot transparent juvenile and an 1,100-pound dark adult of the same species, and science has no information about how long it takes to travel between those two states. Colossal squid cannot survive in captivity. No public aquarium or research facility has ever maintained a living specimen. Every attempt to keep large deep-sea cephalopods alive in tanks has failed because the pressure, temperature, darkness, and space requirements of their natural environment are impossible to replicate in any human-built facility that currently exists. The 2025 footage provided the first behavioural observations of a living specimen in the species' entire known history. The arm posture, the fin movements, the animal's apparent comfort with the camera at a certain distance, a few minutes of video from a 1-foot juvenile, 100 years after the species was formally named. The underlying structural problem is that the colossal squid lives in a place that is genuinely difficult to reach, that is highly sensitive to exactly the disturbances deep-sea research equipment produces, that is spread across an ocean too vast to systematically survey, and in which the squid itself has been shaped by evolution over millions of years to avoid detection. Standard marine biology tools were developed with more accessible animals in mind. The stronger and more capable the research equipment, the more light and noise it produces, and the more likely it is to drive the colossal squid away before it can be observed. Quieter, darker vehicles with red spectrum lighting that many deep-sea animals cannot detect are in development. Progress is real. The gap between science and the colossal squid is closing. But the gap is still enormous, and the squid has been building its head start for a very long time. The 2025 footage, that brief clip of a 1-foot juvenile drifting in Antarctic water, represents the sum total of all direct behavioural observation of this species across 100 years of known existence. Every other fact in this entire video came from dead specimens, beak analysis, or inference from related species. The living animal, doing what living animals do, has been seen exactly once, for a few minutes, as a baby. What that gap means for our understanding of deep ocean life is a larger story than any single animal. The colossal squid has no conservation law written specifically to protect it. No international agreement names it as a species of concern. No fisheries management plan monitors its numbers or sets limits designed with the squid's welfare in mind. And yet it may be one of the most effectively shielded large animals anywhere on Earth right now. The reason is geography and coincidence. The Antarctic Treaty, signed originally in 1959 by 12 nations, and now ratified by over 50 countries, governs all human activity in the region south of 60 degrees of latitude. Within that zone, commercial exploitation of living marine resources requires approval from the Commission for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, which operates with strict precautionary rules and requires independent monitoring of all catches. The system was designed to protect the broader Antarctic ecosystem, not any individual species within it. The Southern Ocean, where the colossal squid lives, falls almost entirely within or immediately adjacent to this treaty zone. The fishing operations that target Patagonian toothfish, the species responsible for every accidental colossal squid capture on record, operate under hard catch quotas enforced by international scientific observers on every vessel. The squid itself has zero commercial value. The ammonium chloride chemistry that keeps the animal buoyant makes the flesh taste sharply bitter, almost acrid, and essentially worthless as food or as a raw material for any industry. No commercial fleet has any motivation to target it. No processing operation wants it. This combination of factors creates a protection that no specific conservation decision about colossal squid could have designed more effectively. A treaty written for other reasons covers its habitat. Economics eliminate any motivation to catch it deliberately. Physical inaccessibility makes accidental catches rare even during authorized fishing operations. Scientists studying ocean conservation describe the colossal squid as a textbook example of incidental protection, a species that survives without significant human pressure for a simple reason. No human interest has ever been powerful enough to reach it in its specific corner of the world. The protection is real, but entirely accidental. The question researchers are beginning to ask is whether those conditions will hold. The Southern Ocean is warming in response to broader climate change. As water temperatures shift, the food web the squid depends on shifts with them. Changes to krill populations, to the toothfish the squid hunts, to the oxygen content and temperature stratification of the deep water column, all ripple upward to affect the colossal squid. The animal's conservation status was assessed as least concern in 2010 using extremely limited data and has not been updated since. Nobody is monitoring the population closely enough to detect early signs of decline. The protection is real. It is also passive, and it depends on conditions staying as they are. There is a deeper irony here. The most biologically remarkable invertebrate on Earth is protected almost entirely by things that have nothing to do with it. A treaty about human presence in Antarctica, a fishing quota system designed for toothfish, and the economic fact that nobody wants to process something that tastes like industrial ammonia. These are thin threads. The treaty has held for over 60 years and shows no sign of collapsing. But the ocean itself is changing in ways the treaty was not designed to address. As the Southern Ocean warms and the food web shifts, the squid's incidental protection remains static, while the squid's environment changes around it. Scientists studying the long-term health of Antarctic ecosystems consider the colossal squid a critical species whose population trends need monitoring. Currently, no monitoring system exists that would detect meaningful change before it became serious. The colossal squid weighs close to 1,100 pounds. Its eyes are wider than dinner plates. Its arms carry rotating hooks that can drive into the hide of a sperm whale. It lives in an ocean surrounding Antarctica that covers 8 million square miles. And until March of 2025, 100 years after it was formally named and described as a species, no human had ever photographed one alive in its natural environment. That fact deserves a moment of full attention. An animal the size of a compact car living in one of the largest ecosystems on Earth was essentially invisible to the entire scientific community for a century. Known only through the undigested remnants inside the stomachs of its predators and through the few accidental catches that brought dying specimens to the surface of a dangerous and remote ocean. The scientific community currently describes approximately 250,000 marine animal species. Estimates for the total number of species actually living in the ocean, including those never yet discovered or described by science, range from 700,000 to over 1 million. The gap between what is known and what exists is vast, and the colossal squid represents the most alarming category within that gap. An animal large enough, ecologically significant enough, and close enough to the edge of scientific awareness to have been partially known for a century, yet so effectively hidden that it remained essentially unstudied across all of that time. The mesopelagic zone, the twilight water layer between roughly 600 and 3,000 feet deep, is estimated to contain 10 times the total biomass of all currently described marine species combined. Scientists have explored only a tiny fraction of that zone in any detail. Most of what lives there has never been sampled, described, or photographed. The colossal squid, hunting at the top of a food chain built from that unexplored community, represents the visible corner of an almost entirely invisible world. Scientists on the 2025 Falkor expedition found the baby colossal squid during the same 35-day voyage that also documented multiple species new to science and produced the first footage ever taken of a related glass squid species. Both that glass squid and the colossal squid had been living in the Southern Ocean through the entire history of colossal squid research. Both remained invisible until a camera happened to be at the right depth at the right moment. The ocean covers 71% of Earth's surface. The deep ocean floor has been mapped in less detail than the surface of Mars. The Southern Ocean has been explored less thoroughly than the near side of the Moon. The colossal squid lives in the gap between what is on this planet and what humans have managed to see of it. Its existence is both a window into that gap and a reminder of how large the gap remains. The 2025 sighting happened because a stranger watching a live stream recognised something scientists on the boat had not. That chain of events, a live stream, a screenshot, a message sent across the world, experts conferring within hours, is new. Deep-sea science has had those tools for only a decade. In that decade, more firsts have accumulated than in the previous century of searching. The colossal squid was one of the last major unknowns to fall. The question is what falls next, and what the next 100 years of ocean science reveals about the world living under that dark surface. The colossal squid and the sperm whale have been shaping each other for 34 million years. That span of time is almost impossible to visualize. 34 million years ago, the first small primates that would eventually produce our lineage were living in trees. The Antarctic continent was already encircled by the Southern Ocean. The ancestors of the colossal squid were already living at depth in cold water, already large by any invertebrate standard, already equipped with the basic body plan of hooks, beak, and large eyes visible in every specimen scientists have since examined. Then toothed whales entered the deep ocean with echolocation, and the rules of survival changed in a way the squid's entire evolutionary history had not prepared for. Researchers who study the whale-squid relationship describe it as a co-evolutionary arms race. When one side develops a new capability, the other side, through natural selection acting over thousands of generations, develops a counter. The whale's echolocation pushed the squid toward larger body size, because a larger squid requires more whale energy and time to catch and subdue, making it less profitable for a whale to pursue. Over millions of years, the squid that survived whale attacks most often were the larger ones, and they passed size-promoting traits to their offspring. Generation by generation, the average size of surviving squid increased. The hooks driven into whale skin during struggles pushed changes in whale jaw anatomy and feeding behaviour over the same time span. Whales that could manage hooked prey more efficiently caught more squid per dive and produced more offspring. The squid's hooks, originally evolved for catching fish, became a weapon in a different conflict they were not designed for. The whale's diving capability deepened across millions of generations of selection, reaching further into the squid's refuge zones. The squid responded through further size increases and through larger eyes capable of detecting the bioluminescent disturbance of an approaching whale from greater distance. Greater detection range gave better escape odds. Better escape odds meant whales with sharper, longer-range echolocation had a hunting advantage. Sharper echolocation pushed the squid toward more sensitive detection systems. Each improvement in one species created selection pressure for an improvement in the other. The sperm whale wins most individual encounters. The stomach evidence makes that clear. But the colossal squid population holds its numbers across the entire Southern Ocean, at levels large enough to sustain that predation. Both animals are still alive, still evolving, still changing in response to each other. The relationship that began 34 million years ago continues in the dark water around Antarctica right now, generation by generation, in encounters that no human has ever watched directly. The arms race between them is among the longest-running predator-prey conflicts documented in the fossil and evolutionary record. It has no resolution in sight. What makes this relationship remarkable beyond its duration is that it has been running in total darkness, at depths most of the planet never visits, between animals that science has barely managed to observe. The sperm whale is comparatively well studied because it breathes at the surface. The colossal squid is studied almost not at all, for reasons covered earlier, and yet the evidence of their conflict, the scars, the beak-size projections, the whale diving patterns, all of it paints a picture of two highly sophisticated animals locked in a mutual shaping process that produced the largest eyes in history, the deepest confirmed diving record of any air-breathing animal, and a set of rotating hooks that no other squid in the colossal squid's biological family has ever evolved. The two animals made each other what they are. That process is still running. The most honest answer to how many colossal squid exist in the Southern Ocean is that nobody knows. The best estimates, built from sperm whale stomach data and feeding rate analysis across multiple research programs, place the total biomass of colossal squid in the Southern Ocean at somewhere between tens and hundreds of millions of tons. Even the low end of that range represents a number of individual animals too large to count meaningfully. Tens of millions of animals at minimum, each weighing hundreds to close to 1,000 pounds, spread across the cold, dark water surrounding Antarctica. Right now, as you listen to this, tens of millions of the largest invertebrates on Earth are drifting in the Southern Ocean. Some are hanging motionless at 3,000 feet, those enormous eyes fully open in water cold enough to stop a human heart in minutes, waiting for a bioluminescent signal that means prey is within range. Some have already struck and are working their beak through a 6-foot toothfish, processing it carefully in small pieces to avoid damaging their own brain on the way down. Some are being located at this moment by the click pulse of an approaching sperm whale, that acoustic signal arriving through still water before the whale itself does, and are responding in whatever way evolution has given them for that exact situation. Somewhere in that population, a female is releasing millions of eggs into the Antarctic circumpolar current, sending the next generation on the same circumpolar drift that colossal squid eggs have been making for millions of years. Most of those eggs will be eaten before they hatch. Some will hatch into transparent glass creatures barely larger than a fingernail, settling into the mesopelagic twilight zone where the 2025 juvenile was filmed. One of those juveniles, if it survives the years of invisible early life in the upper deep, will grow into an animal with eyes wider than any other creature in the history of animal life on Earth, arms covered in rotating hooks that scientists are still trying to fully understand, and a body that can hold its ground in a fight against a 60-ton whale in total darkness. The colossal squid began this story as a beak found inside a whale. It became a dead specimen slowly thawing in a museum facility. It became a few minutes of footage of a glass ghost holding its arms loosely above its head in dark water, completely unaware that the camera watching it was the first human eye ever pointed at its species while it was alive. 100 years of scientific searching, and the animal gave us a few minutes of a baby. The Southern Ocean is still keeping the rest. Somewhere right now, 6,000 feet below the surface of an ocean most people will never see, the largest invertebrate alive is opening its dinner plate eyes. Those eyes are scanning the dark for signals that nothing on the surface produces. Its arms, equipped with rotating hooks that no other squid in its family has developed in 300 million years of cephalopod evolution, are ready. Its brain, built with more neural wiring genes than the human genome carries, is processing whatever the dark water gives it. It has been doing this since before our species existed. It will keep doing it long after we have finally figured out how to watch. The ocean is patient. The squid is patient. The question is whether human curiosity moves fast enough to close the distance before the window closes.